Silas Weston stood in knee-deep snow, watching the stagecoach disappear into the blizzard. His mail-order bride was supposed to arrive alone. Instead, a woman with hollow cheeks and desperate eyes climbed down, followed by 5 children. 5. The youngest hadn't spoken a word since her father died. The oldest looked ready to kill him. And Silas had exactly 12 days before the bank took everything. If you want to know how this widow and her children saved a dying ranch and a broken man's heart, subscribe now and stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The telegram said, "One woman. 1." Silas read it again. Clara Maddox, arriving December 13th. Stage from Denver. Nothing about children. Not a single word about 5 extra mouths he couldn't feed. He crushed the paper in his fist. The stagecoach had already vanished into white. The woman stood where the driver dropped her trunk at her feet, 5 children pressed against her sides. The wind tore at their thin coats. The smallest girl, couldn't be more than 5, had her face buried in her mother's skirt. "Mr. Weston!" Her voice cut through the wind. Flat. Careful. Silas didn't move. "I'm Clara Maddox. I wrote to you about—" "You didn't write about them." Clara's hand tightened on her daughter's shoulder. "Would you have answered if I had—" "No." "Then you understand." The oldest boy stepped forward, 16 maybe, fists already clenched. "We don't need him, Ma." "Elijah! Look at him. He's already deciding how to get rid of us." "I said enough." The boy's jaw locked. He didn't back down, but he stopped talking. Silas watched. The kid wanted a fight, wanted someone to hit, so he'd have a reason to hit back. Silas knew that look. He'd worn it himself at 16. "How old are you, boy?" "Old enough." "Old enough to freeze to death arguing with strangers." Silas turned toward the wagon. "Get in. All of you." Nobody moved. "Ma." A smaller voice, a boy around 8 teeth chattering. "Ma, I can't feel my feet." Clara looked at Silas. Not trust, not yet. Just 2 people who'd run out of road. "Children, get in the wagon." 40 minutes back to the ranch. 40 minutes of silence and wind and the creak of frozen wheels. Silas kept his eyes forward. Behind him, the children huddled together. The youngest girl hadn't made a sound, not when the stage arrived, not when her brothers argued, not now. She just stared at him with dark eyes, too old for her face. "She don't talk." Silas glanced back. The quiet boy, 13 or so, met his gaze. "Since when?" "Since Pa died." "How long?" 18 months. Silas turned forward again. 18 months of silence. He understood that. "What's her name?" "Lillian. Lily." "And you?" "Samuel." The boy paused. "That's Rosemary, she's 11. Tobias is the one who can't stop shivering. He's 8. "I ain't shivering 'cause I'm scared," Tobias said quickly. "I'm shivering 'cause it's cold. There's a difference." "Nobody said you were scared," Samuel said. "I'm just making sure." Clara pulled the boy closer. "Hush now." The wagon crested the hill. The ranch spread below what was left of it. Clara went still. "That's it." Elijah's voice dripped contempt. "That's the stable future you promised her." "Elijah." Clara's voice was quiet, dangerous. "Half the barn's falling down. The fences are rotted through. You can count the ribs on those horses from here." "I said enough." "No, Ma. You dragged us 800 miles for this." "For him." Elijah laughed ugly bitter. "Pa's grave is better kept than this place." The wagon went silent. Silas's hands tightened on the reins. He didn't turn around. Didn't trust himself to speak. Clara's voice came low and hard. "Apologize." "I ain't." "Now." Silence stretched. The wind howled. "Sorry," Elijah muttered. He didn't mean it. They all knew he didn't mean it. Silas snapped the reins. The wagon rolled forward. The cabin was 2 rooms and a loft, built for 1 man, maybe 2. 7 people made it feel like a coffin. Clara moved through the space counting, measuring. Her eyes missed nothing. The sagging shelf, the cracked window stuffed with rags, the empty pantry with 3 cans of beans and half a sack of flour. "Boys in the loft," she said finally. "Girls with me." "Where's he sleep?" Elijah jerked his chin at Silas. "The barn." "In December. There's a stove. I'll manage." Elijah snorted. "First smart thing you've done." "Elijah." Clara grabbed her son's arm. "Outside. Now." She dragged him through the door. It slammed behind them. Through the thin walls, Silas heard voices. Clara's sharp, Elijah's defiant. The other children stood frozen. "Is Ma gonna whip him?" Tobias whispered. "Ma don't whip," Samuel said. "She just talks. That's worse." Rosemary, the 11-year-old, knelt beside Lillian. "It's okay, Lily. It's okay." The little girl's eyes stayed fixed on Silas, watching, waiting, like she expected him to disappear, or worse. Silas crouched down, slowly, the way you'd approach a spooked horse. "Hey there." Lillian pressed closer to Rosemary. "I ain't gonna hurt you. Any of you." He kept his voice low, steady. "This ain't much of a place. I know that. But it's warm, and it's dry, and nobody here's gonna raise a hand to you. Understand?" Lillian didn't respond, didn't blink, but her grip on Rosemary's arm loosened. Just a little. The door banged open. Clara stepped back inside, face flushed from cold and anger. Elijah followed, jaw set, eyes burning. "Elijah has something to say," Clara said. The boy stood rigid. "I shouldn't have said that about your place. And I'll work to earn our keep, starting tomorrow." The words came out like he was spitting nails, but he said them. Silas nodded. "Fair enough." "I ain't finished." Elijah stepped closer. "You hurt my ma or any of my brothers and sisters, I'll kill you. We clear?" "Elijah." "It's fine." Silas met the boy's eyes. "We're clear." For a long moment they stood there. 2 males marking territory. Then Elijah turned and climbed to the loft without another word. Clara let out a breath. "I'm sorry. He's protecting his family. Nothing to apologize for." She studied him, looking for the lie, the angle. "You got any food in this place?" she asked finally. "Real food. Beans, flour, coffee." "That's it." "Had chickens. They stopped laying." "Meat. If I can trap something." Clara nodded like this was exactly what she'd expected. Disappointment met with practice. "Rosemary helped me find the cooking pots. Samuel, check if that pump works. Tobias. I want to help too. You're gonna keep Lily warm by the fire. That's helping. But, most important job there is. Can I trust you with it?" Tobias straightened. "Yes, ma'am." The children scattered. Clara turned to Silas. "We need to talk, after supper." "I figured." "No more lies, from either of us." "Agreed." She held his gaze a moment longer. Then she went to work. Supper was beans stretched thin across 7 plates. The children ate like they hadn't seen food in days. Maybe they hadn't. Silas watched Clara. She served everyone else, first took the smallest portion, pushed food around her plate without eating. "There's more," he said. "I'm fine. You ain't eaten 3 bites. The children need their mother standing upright." He pushed the pot toward her. "Eat." The table went quiet. Even Tobias stopped chewing. Clara's eyes flashed. "I've kept these children alive for 18 months on nothing but my own 2 hands, and whatever God saw fit to, and you did it by starving yourself. That ain't your concern. You're in my house, eating my food. That makes it my concern." The silence stretched. Elijah's hand moved toward his fork like he might use it as a weapon. Clara's voice dropped to ice. "I don't need a stranger telling me how to care for my own children. And I don't need a martyr dying in my kitchen." They stared at each other. The fire crackled. The wind moaned outside. Then, impossibly, Clara laughed. Not much, just a short, sharp sound, but real. "You always this charming with guests." "Ain't had guests in 5 years. Might be out of practice." She shook her head, reached for the pot, took another scoop of beans. Satisfied. Getting there. Later, after the children slept, they sat across from each other at the table. The fire burned low. The wind had died to a whisper. "The ranch is failing," Silas said. "No point in dancing around it. Been failing for 2 years. Drought took the grass. Lost half the herd. Couldn't pay the hands, so they left. Bank's coming in 12 days. If I don't clear $340 by Christmas, they take everything." Clara's face didn't change. "How much you got?" $47. "So you need 312 days?" "Yes." "And you thought a wife would fix that?" Silas looked at his hands, scarred, calloused, empty. "I don't know what I thought. I was drunk when I wrote that ad. Lonely. Figured maybe if I had someone to witness it, someone to share the weight of losing." "That's pathetic." "I know." "You lied to me." "Yes." "You let me drag 5 children 800 miles for a lie." "Yes." Clara stood, walked to the window, looked out at nothing. "Thomas always said I trusted too easy, said it would get me killed one day." Her voice was flat. "Maybe he was right." "Your husband, dead 18 months. She didn't turn around. "Logging accident, tree fell wrong. Lillian was there, watched the whole thing." Silas's chest tightened. The little girl's eyes, the silence. It made sense now. "After Thomas died, his family took everything," Clara continued. "The farm, the savings, said I was bad luck. Said 5 children were too much trouble." She laughed, hollow, broken. "His own brother looked me in the eye and told me to find my own way. So I did." The ad. The ad. She finally turned. Her eyes were dry. No tears left. "I sold everything I had. Bought stage tickets. Told my children we were going somewhere safe. Somewhere stable." She paused. "I lied to them too." Silas didn't know what to say. "What do you say to someone who's lost as much as you have?" "I had a wife," he said finally. "And a son, 5 years ago." Clara went still. Scarlet fever, both of them, same week. He stared at the fire. "I buried them together, dug the grave myself, hit rock before I got deep enough, but I kept going, couldn't stop." The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy, the specific weight of grief that only those who'd carried it understood. "What was his name?" Clara asked quietly. "Daniel. Danny, we called him. He was 4. "And your wife?" "Margaret." Silas's voice caught. "Maggie." Clara sat back down. Her hand moved across the table, stopped halfway. Pulled back. "I'm sorry. It was 5 years ago. Don't matter. Pain don't keep a calendar." Silas looked at her. This woman who'd walked into his disaster with 5 children and nothing but $40 and a Bible. Who'd been lied to, abandoned, stripped of everything, and still sat here, calm, steady, figuring out what came next. "Why ain't you running?" he asked. "Where would I go?" "Anywhere. Back to Denver. Another town. Anywhere but here." Clara smiled, thin, tired but real. "Mister, I've been running for 18 months. I'm tired." She leaned forward. "You got 12 days. I got 5 children. Neither of us got a choice. So here's what I'm thinking. The door burst open. Elijah stood there breathing hard snow in his hair. Someone's coming. Ryder from town. Silas was on his feet before the boy finished talking. The man who rode up was dressed too fine for a working ranch. Expensive coat. Polished boots. The kind of smile that made you check for your wallet. Mr. Weston? He tipped his hat. Lovely evening. Thorne. Lawson Thorne dismounted slow and easy. His eyes moved past Silas to the cabin where Clara stood in the doorway, children gathered behind her. Well, well. Thorne's smile widened. Company. How delightful. What do you want? Just a friendly visit. Heard the stage came in yesterday. Wanted to welcome our new neighbor. His eyes traveled over Clara. Slow. Appraising. Mrs. Maddox. Clara's voice could have frozen the creek. Clara Maddox. Charmed. Thorne didn't sound charmed. He sounded like a man counting money. 5 children. My. That's quite a burden for a man who can barely feed himself. Get off my land. Not your land yet, Silas. Not for another 12 days. Thorne's smile turned sharp. After that, who knows? Perhaps I'll be the one offering hospitality to Mrs. Maddox and her charming family. Elijah pushed forward. You don't talk to my mother like... Silas caught his arm. Inside. But now. The boy's muscles tensed. For a second, Silas thought he'd have to drag him. Then Elijah yanked free and stalked back to the cabin. Thorne watched with amusement. Training the pups already. Good. They'll need discipline. They ain't yours to train. Not yet. Thorne adjusted his gloves. 12 days, Silas. $340. We both know you can't raise it. We both know how this ends. He mounted his horse. When you're ready to discuss terms, I'll be waiting. Merry Christmas. He rode off into the darkness. Silas stood there until the hoofbeats faded. His hands were shaking, not from cold. Clara appeared beside him. That man, she said quietly. What's he want? This land. Why? It's worthless. He don't think so. Silas turned to face her. His family's been trying to buy this ranch for 20 years. My father refused. I refused. But now you're out of choices. Yeah. Clara looked out at the darkness. The wind had picked up again. Snow swirled in the lamplight from the cabin windows. There's something I need to tell you, she said. Silas waited. My husband Thomas, before he died, he was surveying land, looking for opportunities. She paused. He taught me how to read terrain, how to spot signs of mineral deposits. You're a surveyor. I know enough. She met his eyes. This land of yours. I looked at it today, the way the creek runs, the color of the rocks near the North Ridge. What about it? Either I'm wrong or your ranch is sitting on something valuable, something that man Thorne knows about. She paused. And something he's willing to wait 12 days to steal. Silas stared at her. Silver, Clara said. I think there's silver here, Silas. From the doorway, a small voice cut through the wind. Mama! They both turned. Lillian stood on the porch barefoot, in the snow, eyes wide. It was the first word she'd spoken in 18 months. Clara ran, swept the girl into her arms. Baby, did you just... Lillian's face crumpled. She buried her head in her mother's shoulder and spoke again. Mama, I'm scared. Clara sobbed. One raw, broken sound. The other children spilled onto the porch. Elijah, Samuel, Rosemary, Tobias all staring. She talked, Tobias breathed. Lily talked. Hush. Clara held her daughter tighter. Tears streamed down her face. It's okay, baby. Mama's here. Mama's got you. Silas stood frozen. The little girl's voice, thin, rusty from disuse, echoed in his chest. A child speaking for the first time in 18 months. A mother weeping with relief. He thought of Danny. Of the last words his son ever said. "Papa, will you stay with me?" He hadn't. He'd gone to fetch water. When he came back, Danny was gone. "Get her inside," Silas said roughly. "She'll catch her death." Clara carried Lillian into the cabin. The other children followed, buzzing with excitement. Silas stayed on the porch. The snow fell harder now. Somewhere in the darkness, Thorn was riding back to town, planning his next move. 12 days. Silver under the ground. A little girl who'd found her voice. And a feeling in Silas's chest he hadn't felt in 5 years. Something dangerous and terrifying. Hope. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat by the fire, Lillian curled in her lap, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall. The other children had finally settled. Tobias passed out from exhaustion. Rosemary clutching her sister's hand even in sleep. Samuel and Elijah silent in the loft above. But Clara couldn't close her eyes. "Mama, I'm scared." 3 words. 18 months of silence, and then 3 words. The cabin door creaked open. Silas stepped inside, snow dusting his shoulders. He stopped when he saw her. "She's still asleep." Clara nodded. "Won't let go of me." Silas crossed to the fire, added a log. The flames jumped higher, casting shadows across his face. "What you said out there," he said quietly, "about the silver. I know what I saw." "You sure?" Clara stroked Lillian's hair. "My husband spent 3 years learning to read land. He taught me everything he knew. The way the rocks layer near your north ridge, the color of the soil by the creek bed, those are signs, Silas. Good signs." "Then why ain't anyone found it before?" "Because no one was looking." Clara met his eyes. "Or maybe someone was." Silas frowned. "Thorn. He wants this land awful bad for a failing cattle ranch. You said yourself his family's been trying to buy it for 20 years. Why, what do they know that you don't?" Silas stared into the fire. The question had never occurred to him. His father had always said the Thorns were just greedy, wanted to expand their empire, swallow up every small rancher in the territory. But what if it was something else? What if they'd known all along what lay beneath the dirt? "My father never mentioned silver," he said. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe Thorn's family found something and kept it quiet, waiting for the right time to... Lillian stirred. Whimpered. Clara went still. "Shh, baby. Mama's here." The girl's eyes fluttered open. For a terrible moment, Clara braced for the silence to return, for Lillian to retreat back into that dark place where words couldn't reach her. But Lillian looked up at her mother and whispered, "I had a bad dream." Clara's breath caught. "What kind of dream, baby?" "The tree. The tree was falling again." Clara pulled her closer, rocked her. "It's over now. The tree's gone. You're safe." "Papa's gone too." "I know, sweetheart. I know." Silas stood frozen by the fire. He shouldn't be here for this. This was private, a mother and daughter grief and healing. He didn't belong. But when he moved toward the door, Lillian's voice stopped him. "Mr." He turned. The girl was looking at him with those dark, knowing eyes. "Are you going to make Mama cry?" The question hit him like a fist. "No," he said. "I ain't going to make your mama cry." "Promise." Silas looked at Clara. At this woman who'd walked into his disaster carrying 5 children and a trunk full of broken dreams. Who'd already been lied to, abandoned, stripped of everything. "I promise." Lillian studied him a moment longer. Then she nodded, tucked her head against Clara's chest, and closed her eyes. Clara mouthed 2 words over her daughter's head. "Thank you." Silas nodded and stepped out into the cold. The snow had stopped. Stars glittered overhead like scattered ice. He stood on the porch, breath fogging in the darkness, and tried to remember the last time he'd made a promise to anyone. 5 years. Maggie's deathbed. He'd promised to take care of Danny, and 3 days later Danny was dead too. He'd stopped making promises after that. But something about that little girl's eyes, something about the way she'd looked at him searching for truth, made him want to try again. 11 days. He had 11 days to save this ranch, protect this family, and figure out if there really was silver under his land. And if there was, he had 11 days to find it before Thorn took everything. The first light of dawn was creeping over the mountains when Silas finally went to the barn. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. His mind kept circling back to Clara's words, to Lillian's question, to the promise he'd made without thinking. Are you going to make Mama cry? God help him, he hoped not. Morning came hard and fast. Silas was hauling water from the pump when Elijah appeared coatless despite the cold jaw set for battle. I want to check the north pasture. Silas set down the bucket. Why? Ma said there might be something up there. I want to see for myself. Your ma told you about... I ain't deaf. I heard you talking last night. Elijah's eyes were sharp, accusing. Silver. You really think there's silver on this land? Your mother thinks so. And what do you think? Silas wiped his hands on his trousers. I think your mother's smarter than me. If she says there's signs, I believe her. Elijah snorted. You believe her 'cause you're desperate. That too. The honesty caught the boy off guard. He'd been expecting denial, defensiveness, not agreement. I'm going to check, Elijah said. With or without your permission. Didn't say you needed permission, said I wanted to know why. Because if there's silver, it changes everything. Elijah stepped closer. It means we ain't stuck here begging for scraps. It means Ma has options. It means you can leave. Elijah's mouth snapped shut. Silas nodded slowly. That's what you're thinking, ain't it? Find the silver, stake a claim, and get your family away from the broken-down rancher who can't feed himself. Can you blame me? No. Silas picked up the bucket. I'd be thinking the same thing in your shoes. Then why ain't you mad? Because you're trying to protect your family. Ain't nothing wrong with that. He started toward the house, then paused. Take Samuel with you. He's got good eyes. And stay away from the ridge grounds, unstable up there when it's icy. Elijah stared at him. You're just letting me go. You're 16. Old enough to make your own choices. Silas met his gaze. Just be smart about it. Your ma's got enough to worry about. He walked away before Elijah could respond. Inside the cabin, Clara was making breakfast with whatever she'd scrounged from the bare pantry. Rosemary helped moving with quiet efficiency. Tobias sat by the fire with Lillian telling her some wild story about a bear he claimed to have seen from the stagecoach window. And it was this big Lily, I swear, bigger than a horse, maybe bigger than 2 horses. Bears ain't that big, Lillian said softly. Everyone went still. Tobias recovered first. This one was. It was a special bear, a magic bear. There ain't no magic bears. How do you know you ever seen one? No. Then how do you know there ain't? Lillian considered this with tremendous seriousness. I guess I don't. See magic bear. Clara turned away from the stove. Silas saw her wipe her eyes, quickly tears of relief, of joy, of something that had been locked away for 18 months. Mr. Weston. Her voice was steady despite the emotion. Will you be joining us for breakfast? If there's enough. There's enough. She ladled oatmeal into a bowl. Rosemary found more in the back of the pantry. Seems you've got supplies you forgot about. Seems so. They ate together at the small table, 7 people crammed into a space built for 2. Elbows bumped, knees knocked. Tobias spilled his water, and Rosemary cleaned it up without being asked. It should have felt crowded, suffocating. Instead, it felt like something Silas had forgotten existed. Family. The word surfaced unbidden, and he pushed it away. Dangerous thinking. These weren't his family. They were strangers, temporary guests who'd be gone the moment something better came along. But when Lillian reached across the table for the salt, and her small hand brushed his arm, she didn't flinch away. Progress. Small, fragile progress. After breakfast, Samuel approached him. The boy was quieter than his brother, watchful, careful with his words. "Mr. Weston, I saw some books in the barn. In that back room." Silas paused. "You were in my tack room." "I was looking for harness leather. Elijah wanted to fix the—" Samuel stopped. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone through your things." "It's fine." Silas studied the boy. 13, Clara had said. Old enough to work, young enough to still need guidance. "You like books?" Samuel's face lit up before he could hide it. "Yes, sir. Pa used to—" The light dimmed. "Pa used to read to us. Before." "What kind of books?" "Anything. Everything. He said reading was how poor men got rich without stealing." Silas almost smiled. "Smart man, your pa." "He was." Samuel's voice was quiet, fierce. "He was the smartest man I ever knew." "Then he'd want you to keep reading." Silas jerked his head toward the barn. "Those books in the tack room, they were my mother's. She taught me letters when I was younger than you. Take whatever you want." Samuel's eyes widened. "Really? Just don't let them get wet, and bring them back when you're done." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." The boy practically ran toward the barn. Clara appeared at Silas's elbow, watching him go. "That was kind of you." Silas shrugged. "They're just books. Ain't doing anyone good sitting in a box." "Still, you didn't have to." Clara paused. "Samuel's been lost since Thomas died. Elijah had anger to keep him going. Rosemary had the younger ones to care for. But Samuel, he just went quiet, retreated into himself. Like Lillian. Different." Lily stopped talking. Samuel stopped hoping. Clara's voice was soft. "Maybe those books will give him something to hope for again." Silas didn't know what to say. He'd offered the books without thinking, an impulse, nothing more. But the gratitude in Clara's eyes made him uncomfortable. He wasn't used to being thanked. "I should check on the horses," he muttered. "Silas." He stopped. It was the first time she'd used his given name. "Whatever happens with the bank, with Thorne, with all of it." Clara met his gaze. "Thank you for not turning us away." "Thought about it." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." They stood there, something unspoken passing between them. Not trust, not yet. But the beginning of it. The foundation. Then Tobias came barreling out of the cabin, shouting about magic bears again, and the moment broke. Elijah and Samuel returned at midday, cheeks red from cold eyes bright with discovery. "We found something," Samuel said breathlessly. "Up by the North Ridge. There's an old mine shaft collapsed, but you can see where they dug. And the rocks, the rocks are just like you described." Clara set down the shirt she'd been mending. "Show me." "It's a 2-hour ride." "Then we'd better leave now." Silas stepped forward. "I'll go with you." Elijah's jaw tightened. "We don't need—" "You don't know this land," Silas said flatly. "I do. There's a canyon between here and the North Ridge that floods when the snow melts. Wrong path and you'll be neck-deep in ice water before you know what happened." "I can handle—" "Elijah," Clara's voice cut through. "Mr. Weston knows the terrain. We need him." The boy's fists clenched. For a moment Silas thought he'd argue, but Clara's gaze held steady, and finally Elijah looked away. "Fine, but I'm leading." "Fair enough." Silas grabbed his coat. "Rosemary, you're in charge while we're gone. Keep the fire going and don't let Tobias eat all the bread." "Yes, sir." "I won't eat all the bread," Tobias protested. "Just most of it." Despite everything, Silas felt the corner of his mouth twitch. The boy was impossible not to like. The ride to the North Ridge took longer than 2 hours. The snow had drifted deep in places, and twice they had to dismount and lead the horses through. Elijah pushed ahead, determined to prove he didn't need help. Samuel rode beside Clara, pointing out landmarks he'd memorized on his earlier trip. Silas brought up the rear, watching, assessing. The land looked different in winter, stripped bare, all pretense removed. You could see the bones of it, the way the hills rolled, the places where water collected, the dark veins of rock pushing through the white. Clara saw it too. Her eyes moved constantly, reading the terrain like others read books. There. She pointed toward a rocky outcropping. See how the stone changes color? That's oxidation. Something metallic underneath. Could be iron, Silas said. Could be, but iron don't usually run in veins like that. Clara urged her horse forward. I want to see that mine shaft. They found it at the base of a steep slope, a dark mouth in the hillside, half buried by decades of rockfall. Old timber supports poked through the rubble, rotted and splintered. Someone was digging here, Samuel said. A long time ago. Silas dismounted, approached the opening carefully. The ground was unstable. He could feel it shifting under his boots. Don't go in, Clara warned. The whole thing could come down. Wasn't planning to. He crouched, examined the rocks scattered near the entrance. Most were ordinary granite, unremarkable. But a few. Hand me that piece there. He pointed to a chunk near Samuel's feet. The boy passed it over. Silas turned it in his hands, scraping away the frost and dirt with his thumbnail. Underneath, the rock glittered with pale metallic threads. Well? Clara asked. I ain't a geologist. Silas stood still, holding the rock. But this don't look like iron to me. Clara took it from him. Her face changed as she examined it, hope warring with caution. We need to get this assayed, properly. Nearest assay office is in Denver, 3 days' ride. Then we do it in 2. Elijah stepped forward. I'll go. No. Clara's voice was firm. We stay together. Ma. I said no. I won't have you riding alone through the mountains in winter. She looked at Silas. Is there anyone closer? Anyone who could tell us what this is? Silas thought. There's an old prospector in town, Ezra Hawkins. He worked the silver mines in Nevada before his lungs gave out. If anyone can identify that rock, it's him. Can we trust him? He hates Thorn more than I do. That's enough for me. They rode back as the sun began to set, shadows stretching long across the snow. Clara clutched the rock sample in her saddlebag like it was made of gold. Maybe it was. Maybe everything they needed was sitting right under their feet, and the only thing standing between them and survival was time. 10 days now. 10 days until the bank came. And somewhere out there, Lawson Thorn was waiting. The next morning, Silas rode into town alone. Clara had wanted to come, but someone needed to stay with the children, and they both knew Elijah wasn't ready to be left in charge. Be careful, she'd said as he mounted up. Thorn has eyes everywhere. I know. And Silas? She'd paused, struggling with something. If it's not silver, if I'm wrong, then we figure out something else. But one problem at a time, Clara. That's how you survive. He'd ridden off before she could respond. The words had come out harsher than he intended, but he didn't know how to offer comfort. Didn't know if he had any comfort left to give. Town was a 40-minute ride on a good day. Today, with the snow, it took nearly an hour. Silas kept to the back roads, avoiding the main street where Thorn's men would be watching. Ezra Hawkins lived in the shack on the edge of town, surrounded by rusted mining equipment and empty whiskey bottles. The old man was sitting on his porch when Silas rode up, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders and a pipe clenched between his teeth. Weston. He didn't sound surprised. Heard you got company. Word travels fast. Only thing that does in this town. Ezra's eyes were sharp despite his age, blue as glacial ice and twice as cold. What do you want? Silas dismounted, pulled the rock sample from his saddlebag. Need you to look at something. Ezra took the rock with gnarled fingers, turned it over. held it up to the weak winter sunlight. "Where'd you get this?" "North Ridge. Old mine shaft collapsed. The Morrison dig." Ezra nodded slowly. "Always wondered what they found up there before they quit." "They found something, lost someone." Ezra handed the rock back. "Morrison's partner died in a cave-in. After that, Morrison sold his claim and left the territory. Never said what they'd dug up, but he had money when he left. More money than a failed prospector should have." Silas's heart was beating faster now. "Who'd he sell the claim to?" Ezra's smile was grim. "Who do you think Old Man Thorne, Lawson's grandfather, bought it for pennies and sat on it for 40 years. Why, if there's silver up there?" "Ain't about the silver." Ezra pulled his blanket tighter. "Thorns have been playing a long game since before you were born. They buy land, wait for the owners to fail, then scoop up everything for nothing. Your ranch sits right in the middle of 3 claims they already own. Without your land, they can't access the ridge. Without the ridge, they can't reach the silver. Now you're catching on." Ezra spat into the snow. "Your daddy knew. That's why he never sold no matter how hard times got. He knew the Thorns needed his land more than he needed their money." Silas stared at this rock in his hands. All these years of struggling suffering, watching everything fall apart, and the answer had been right under his feet. "Is it silver?" he asked. "That rock, is it what I think it is?" Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "High-grade ore. Some of the best I've seen since Nevada." He met Silas's eyes. "You're sitting on a fortune, boy. Question is, can you keep it?" Silas rode back to the ranch with his mind racing. The rock sat in his saddlebag heavier now with the weight of what it meant. Silver. Real silver. Enough to pay off the debt 100 times over. But Ezra was right. The question wasn't whether the silver existed. The question was whether they could claim it before Thorne took everything. He was a mile from the ranch when he saw the smoke. Not chimney smoke too thick, too black. Something was burning. Something big. Silas kicked his horse into a gallop. He crested the ridge and his stomach dropped. The barn was on fire. Flames licked up the sides, devouring the old wood like hungry wolves. Figures moved in the yard, Clara and the children hauling water from the pump in a desperate bucket chain. Silas was off his horse before it stopped moving. "What happened?" Clara's face was streaked with soot and tears. "We don't know. It started 20 minutes ago. The horses—" A scream from the barn. A horse's scream, high, terrified. Elijah was running toward the flames. "Boy, stop!" But Elijah didn't stop. He plunged through the barn doors and disappeared into the smoke. Silas ran after him. Inside, the heat was a wall. Smoke blinded him, burned his lungs. He could hear the horses thrashing in their stalls, maddened by fear. "Elijah! Over here!" Silas followed the voice. Found the boy wrestling with a stall door trying to free the last horse, Silas's old mare, the only animal worth anything left on the ranch. "It's stuck," Elijah shouted. "The latch is stuck." Silas shoved him aside. Grabbed the latch, yanked with everything he had. Metal screeched against metal. The door flew open. The mare bolted past them, nearly trampling Elijah in her panic. The boy stumbled, fell. Above them, a beam cracked. Silas grabbed Elijah's arm, hauled him upright. "Move!" They ran. Behind them, the roof gave way with a sound like the world ending. They burst out of the barn just as it collapsed. Flaming timber crashed where they'd been standing seconds before. Sparks showered the yard like hellish snow. Silas and Elijah lay in the dirt, gasping, coughing, alive. Clara was there instantly, pulling Elijah into her arms. "You stupid, stupid boy. The horse. I don't care about the horse, I care about you." Elijah let himself be held, just for a moment. Then he pulled back, jaw set. "I'm fine, Ma." "You could have died, but I didn't." He looked at Silas. "He got me out." Clara turned to Silas. Her eyes were wet, her face pale beneath the soot. "Thank you." Silas shook his head. "Don't thank me. He saved the horse. You saved my son." The words hung between them. Everything else, the fire, the silver, the debt, faded into background noise. In that moment there was only Clara's gratitude and Silas's inability to accept it. "Who did this?" he asked roughly. "The fire didn't start itself." "We found this." Samuel stepped forward, holding something in his hand. A piece of paper scorched at the edges but still readable. Silas took it, read the words scrawled in crude letters. 10 days. Sell or burn. No signature. None needed. "Thorn," Elijah spat. "Can't prove it," Silas said. "Don't need to prove it. Everyone knows." "Knowing and proving ain't the same thing, not in a court of law." Clara took the note from his hands, read it herself. Her face hardened. "He's scared," she said quietly. Silas frowned. "What?" "Thorn. He's scared." Clara looked up. "A man who knows he's going to win doesn't need to burn barns. He just waits. But Thorn's not waiting anymore. He's pushing." She met Silas's eyes. "Because he knows we found something." Silas thought about it. She was right. The timing was too perfect. They'd found the mine shaft yesterday. Today the barn burned. Someone was watching them, reporting back. "We need to file a claim," Silas said, "before Thorn can move." "How?" "We don't have money for filing fees. We have the rock." Silas pulled it from his saddlebag. Ezra confirmed it. High-grade silver ore. Best he's seen since Nevada. Clara's breath caught. "Then it's real." "It's real. But it don't matter if we can't prove ownership. We need to file a mineral claim, and we need to do it before Thorn buys the ranch from the bank." "Yes." Clara looked at the burning ruins of the barn, at her children huddled together in the yard, at the man she'd married out of desperation who'd just risked his life for her son. "Then we file tomorrow," she said. "First thing. The office is in Denver. 3 days. Then we ride through the night. We ride until the horses drop if we have to." Clara's voice was steel. "I didn't drag my children 800 miles to lose everything to a man who burns barns like a coward." Silas looked at her, at this woman who'd arrived a week ago with nothing but a trunk and a prayer, who'd found silver on his land, given voice to her silent daughter, and now stood in the ashes of his barn, refusing to surrender. Something stirred in his chest. Something he'd thought died with Maggie. "All right," he said. "We ride at dawn." Clara nodded. Then she turned to her children, started giving orders. Salvage what they could. Tend to the horses. Keep watch through the night. Silas watched her work, and he thought about promises. About the one he'd made to Lillian. "Are you gonna make Mama cry?" He'd promised he wouldn't, and come hell or high water, he intended to keep that promise, even if it killed him. They didn't make it to dawn. Silas was saddling the horses in the ruined shell of what used to be the barn when he heard the riders coming. 3 of them, maybe 4 hooves, pounding through the frozen dark. "Clara!" She was already at the door, rifle in hand. Where she'd found it, Silas didn't know. Didn't care. "Children, get down," Clara ordered. "Away from the windows, now." The riders stopped at the edge of the property. Torchlight flickered in the darkness, 4 men faces hidden beneath hat brims and bandanas. One of them rode forward. "Weston!" Silas recognized the voice. Colt Brennan, one of Thorn's hired hands. A man who'd do anything for money and enjoy most of it. "What do you want, Brennan?" "Mr. Thorn sends his regards." Brennan's horse pranced nervously. "Says he heard about your barn. Tragic accident. Could have been worse, though. Could have been the house." Clara's knuckles went white on the rifle. "Get off my land," Silas said. "Ain't your land yet. 9 days, Weston. 9 days and everything here belongs to Mr. Thorn." Brennan paused. "Unless you want to save yourself some trouble." Sign over the deed tonight. Mr. Thorne's prepared to be generous. How generous? Enough for the widow and her brats to start over somewhere else. Enough for you to drink yourself to death in peace. Brennan's smile was audible even in the darkness. Better than what happens if you keep fighting. Silas felt Clara move beside him. Her voice cut through the cold like a blade. You tell Mr. Thorne something for me. Brennan turned toward her. The widow speaks. What's the message, sweetheart? Tell him if he sends men to my home again, I'll bury them in the north pasture, and tell him I don't miss. She raised the rifle, aimed it directly at Brennan's chest. The other rider shifted nervously. Brennan held up his hands. Easy now. No need for... There's every need. Clara's voice didn't waver. You burned our barn. You threatened our children. You think I won't pull this trigger. Ma'am, I don't know what you're... Don't lie to me. I've had enough lies to last a lifetime. Clara stepped forward. Now get off this property before I decide Thorne needs a new messenger. Silence. The torches crackled. The horses stamped. Then Brennan laughed low, ugly. You've got spirit, widow. I'll give you that. He turned his horse. 9 days. Remember that. They rode off into the darkness. Clara kept the rifle raised until the hoofbeats faded to nothing. Then her hands began to shake. Silas caught her as her knees buckled. I've got you. I've got you. I couldn't... Her voice broke. I couldn't let them. You didn't. You sent them running. Silas guided her to the porch steps, helped her sit. That was the bravest thing I've seen in 10 years. I was terrified. Brave ain't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. Clara laughed a wet, broken sound. Thomas used to say that. Smart man. He was. She wiped her eyes. God, he was. The cabin door creaked open. Lillian stood there, bare feet on the cold boards, eyes wide. Mama. Clara opened her arms. Lillian ran into them. It's okay, baby. The bad men are gone. They wanted to hurt us. Yes, but they didn't. They won't. Lillian looked at Silas over her mother's shoulder. Did you make them go away? Your mama did. She was very brave. The little girl considered this. Then she reached out one small hand and touched Silas's arm. Thank you for helping Mama be brave. Silas didn't know what to say. The touch was so light, so tentative, like a bird landing on a branch ready to fly at the first sign of danger. You're welcome, he managed. Lillian nodded solemnly. Then she took her mother's hand and led her inside. Silas stayed on the porch, staring into the darkness where Brennan and his men had disappeared. 9 days. And now Thorne knew they weren't going to surrender quietly. The game had changed, and Silas had a terrible feeling it was about to get much worse. They left before dawn, not for Denver, not yet. Clara had made the decision while the children slept. We can't leave them here, she'd said. Not after tonight. Not with Brennan and his men knowing where we are. So we all go. We all go. Every single one of us. It was madness. 5 children, 2 adults, 3 horses, and 100 miles of mountain road in the dead of winter. But Clara was right. Leaving the children behind meant leaving them vulnerable. And after what Brennan had said, could have been the house, Silas wasn't willing to take that risk. They packed what they could. Food blankets, the rifle ammunition. Samuel loaded his borrowed books into a saddlebag. Tobias insisted on bringing a wooden horse he'd carved from a piece of barnwood. Lillian clutched her mother's hand and didn't let go. Elijah pulled Silas aside while the others finished packing. This is crazy. You know that. I know. 3 days to Denver, in winter, with 5 kids and 3 horses. I can count boy. Elijah's jaw tightened. I ain't a boy. Then stop acting like one. Silas met his eyes. You got a better plan. Speak up. I'm listening. Silence. That's what I thought. Silas turned back to the horses. We leave in 10 minutes. Make sure Tobias uses the outhouse first. I ain't stopping every hour because he drank too much water. Despite everything, Elijah almost smiled. Almost. The first day was hard. The second day was worse. The mountain roads were treacherous, iced over in places, buried under drifts in others. They had to dismount and lead the horses more often than ride. Tobias complained about the cold until Rosemary threatened to leave him in a snowbank. Samuel read aloud from one of his books to pass the time, his voice carrying across the frozen landscape. Lillian rode with Clara, bundled in every blanket they had. She'd started talking more since that first night. Short sentences, quiet observations, but she still flinched at loud noises and refused to let her mother out of sight. She's getting better, Clara said, during a rest stop watching Lillian help Rosemary build a small snowman. Slowly, but better. Kids are resilient. So I keep telling myself. Clara pulled her shawl tighter. Some days I believe it. Some days I don't. Silas handed her a cup of hot coffee, the last of their supply. You're doing fine? Am I? She laughed bitterly. I uprooted them from the only home they knew, dragged them across the country to marry a stranger. Now I'm hauling them through a blizzard to file a mining claim that might not even... Stop. Clara looked at him. You're doing what you have to do, Silas said. Same as any mother would. Same as my mother did when my father died, and she had to run this ranch alone for 3 years. Your mother ran the ranch. Till I was old enough to take over. She worked dawn to dusk every day, never complained, taught me everything I know. He paused. She'd have liked you. Clara was quiet for a moment. What happened to her? Fever. Same one that took Maggie and Danny just earlier. Silas stared at his coffee. Sometimes I think that sickness was just waiting for our family, picking us off one by one. Silas, we should get moving. He stood abruptly. Storm's coming. I can smell it. Clara wanted to press further. He could see it in her eyes. But she let it go. Some wounds weren't ready to be touched. The storm hit that night. They'd found shelter in an abandoned mining cabin, barely more than 4 walls and a roof, but it blocked the wind. Silas got a fire going while Clara settled the children. Outside, the world disappeared into a wall of white. How long? Clara asked, peering through a crack in the shutters. Could be hours. Could be days. Silas fed another log to the fire. These mountain storms are unpredictable. We don't have days. The claim office. Won't matter if we're dead. He met her eyes. We wait. Elijah paced like a caged animal. This is exactly what Thorne wanted. He knew we'd try to file. He knew we'd get caught in the mountains. Thorne don't control the weather, Silas said. No, but he controls everything else. Samuel looked up from his book. Actually, there's a story in here about a man who tried to control the weather. It didn't end well for him. Not helping Sam. I thought it was relevant. Tobias, who'd been suspiciously quiet, suddenly spoke up. I don't feel good. Everyone turned. The boy's face was flushed, his eyes glassy. Clara crossed to him in 3 steps, pressed her hand to his forehead. He's burning up. Silas's stomach dropped. Fever. In the mountains. Miles from any doctor. Tobias, sweetheart, when did you start feeling sick? This morning, but I didn't want to make us stop. Tobias's lip trembled. I'm sorry, Ma. I didn't mean to... Shh. You've got nothing to be sorry for. Clara was already stripping off his coat, feeling his neck, checking his eyes. Rosemary, get me the water. Samuel, find the extra blankets. Elijah. I'll get snow. For the fever. He was out the door before Clara could respond. Silas watched the family mobilize each child, knowing exactly what to do, moving without panic. What do you need? He asked Clara. Willow bark if we had any. Honey for his throat. Clean water. She shook her head. We don't have any of it. There's willow bark in the forest. I've seen it growing near streams. You can't go out in that storm. I've survived worse. Silas grabbed his coat. Keep him warm. Keep him drinking. I'll be back. Silas. He was already gone. The storm hit him like a fist. Wind tore at his clothes, drove ice into his face. He couldn't see 10 feet ahead. But he'd spent 30 years on this land. He knew where the streams ran, where the willows grew. He found them by feel, more than sight, the distinctive rough bark under his frozen fingers. He stripped what he could, stuffed it inside his coat to keep it dry, and fought his way back to the cabin. He'd been gone 20 minutes. It felt like hours. Clara met him at the door, face tight with worry. Thank God. How is he? Worse. The fever's climbing. Silas handed over the willow bark. Boil it. Make him drink the tea, even if he fights you. I know how to treat a fever. Clara's voice was sharp, scared. I know you do. She softened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... You're scared for your boy. Ain't nothing to apologize for. The night stretched into eternity. Tobias drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about magic bears and snow and his father. Clara stayed by his side, cooling his forehead with snow. Elijah brought in forcing willow bark tea between his cracked lips. The other children huddled together near the fire. Lillian had crawled into Rosemary's lap and fallen asleep. Samuel read by firelight, lips moving silently. Elijah sat apart watching his brother, fists clenched against his knees. He's gonna die, ain't he? Silas looked at the boy. What? Tobias? He's gonna die and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Elijah's voice was hollow. Just like Pa. Your pa died in an accident. This is different. Is it? We're stuck in the middle of nowhere with no doctor, no medicine, nothing. How is this different? Silas didn't have an answer, because the boy was right. They were trapped helpless watching a child fight for his life with nothing but boiled bark and prayers. I used to think I could protect them, Elijah continued. After Pa died, I told myself I'd keep them safe. I'd be the man of the family. I'd make sure nothing bad happened. He laughed bitterly. Look how well that turned out. You're 16. So you've done more than most grown men would. You've kept your family together, kept them fed, kept them moving. Silas sat down beside him. That ain't nothing, Elijah. That's everything. The boy was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. I'm tired. I know. I'm so tired of being scared all the time. Tired of pretending I know what I'm doing. Tired of... His voice cracked. Tired of missing him. My pa. I miss him so much. Silas thought about Danny. About the weight of grief that never really lifted, just shifted. Missing don't ever stop, he said. You just learn to carry it different. How? I'll let you know when I figure it out. Elijah looked at him. Really looked maybe for the first time. You lost people too. My wife, my son, same fever that's got your brother. Silas stared at the fire. 5 years ago. Some days it feels like yesterday. Some days it feels like another life. Does it get easier? No. It gets different. You find ways to keep going. You find reasons. He glanced toward Clara, still bent over Tobias. Sometimes the reasons find you. Elijah followed his gaze. You care about her, my ma. It wasn't a question. Silas didn't answer. Didn't need to. She's been alone since Pa died, Elijah said quietly. Even when we were there, she was alone, carrying everything by herself. She'd never admit it, but I could see it. The weight. She's stronger than anyone I've ever met. That's the problem. She's so strong she won't let anyone help her. Elijah paused. Until now. Silas looked at him. She trusts you, Elijah said. I don't know why. After everything she's been through, she shouldn't trust anyone, but she trusts you. And you don't. I don't trust Easy, not anymore. The boy held his gaze. but I'm starting to think maybe I should try." Before Silas could respond, Clara's voice cut through the cabin. "His fever's breaking." They both scrambled to their feet. Tobias was still pale, still weak, but his eyes were clearer, and the flush in his cheeks had faded. "Ma," his voice was a croak. "Did I miss anything?" Clara sobbed. Relief exhaustion. Love all tangled together. "No, sweetheart. You didn't miss anything. I had the weirdest dream. There was a bear, but it wasn't a magic bear. It was a sick bear, and I had to give it medicine. But the medicine was made of snow and— Tobias." Clara was laughing now, tears streaming down her face. "Stop talking and drink this." "More bark tea, Ma. That stuff tastes like—" "Drink it anyway." Tobias made a face but obeyed. The other children crowded around Rosemary, crying, Samuel pretending not to cry. Lillian patting her brother's hand with solemn tenderness. Elijah stood back watching. His shoulders had dropped tension, releasing that he'd been holding for hours. Silas caught his eye, nodded. Elijah nodded back. Something had shifted between them. Not trust, not yet, but the possibility of it. The storm broke the next morning. They emerged from the cabin into a world transformed white and glittering, silent as a church. Tobias was weak but insistent. "I can ride. I ain't staying here another minute." "You'll ride with me," Clara said. "No arguments." "But Ma—" "No arguments." He slumped, but didn't fight. Progress. They made good time. The snow had packed down enough to travel, and the horses seemed eager to move after being cooped up. By midday, they'd covered more ground than the previous 2 days combined. It was Samuel who spotted the riders first. "Someone's coming." Silas squinted against the snow glare, 3 figures on horseback approaching from the east. "Brennan?" "Can't tell." Clara's hand moved to the rifle. "Children, stay behind me." But as the riders drew closer, Silas relaxed. He recognized the lead horse, a paint mare with distinctive markings. "It's all right. I know them." The riders pulled up 10 feet away. The leader pushed back his hat, revealing a weathered face and sharp gray eyes. "Silas Weston. Thought that was you." "Hector." Hector Morales had worked for Silas's father before Silas was born. He'd left 5 years ago when Silas couldn't afford to pay him anymore. No hard feelings, just survival. Now he rode for a ranch outside Denver, last Silas had heard. "What are you doing out here?" Silas asked. "Could ask you the same. Heard some interesting rumors in town." Hector's eyes moved over Clara the children. "Heard Lawson Thorne's been causing trouble." "You heard right." "Also heard something about Silver." Silas went still. "Where'd you hear that Ezra Hawkins? He's been talking to anyone who'll listen." Hector smiled grimly. "Said you needed help. Said Thorne was fixing to steal your land." "Ezra's got a big mouth." "Ezra's got a conscience. There's a difference." Hector dismounted. "We came to help Silas, if you'll have us." Silas looked at the other 2 riders' men he didn't recognize, but who had the look of honest workers. "Why would you help me? I can't pay you." "You paid my wages for 15 years. Your father paid them for 20 before that." Hector's voice was firm. "Some debts ain't about money." Clara stepped forward. "You're Hector Morales. Silas mentioned you." "Did he now?" Hector tipped his hat. "Ma'am." "He said you were the best hand his father ever hired." "Well." Hector's weathered cheeks colored slightly. "Don't know about that." "He also said you left when he couldn't afford to keep you, that you didn't hold it against him." "Weren't nothing to hold. Times were hard. Man does what he has to." Clara smiled, the first real smile Silas had seen from her in days. "Then I suppose we'd be fools to turn down your help." "Suppose you would." They rode together now, 7 adults and children, plus Hector's 2 men. The world felt less hostile with reinforcements. Less impossible. That night, camped in a sheltered valley, Hector told them what he'd learned in town. Thorne's getting desperate. He's been buying up every debt he can find, trying to pressure folks into selling. Word is, he's got something big planned, some kind of mining operation. But he needs your land to make it work. The North Ridge, Clara said. That's where the silver is. Makes sense. That ridge is the only access point to the old Morrison dig. Without it, Thorne can't move equipment in or ore out. Silas stared into the fire. So if we file our claim first, you cut him off. He can't touch the silver without going through your land, and he can't take your land if you've got a valid mineral claim registered. What's stopping him from filing his own claim? Hector shook his head. Already tried. 30 years ago, his grandfather filed on the Morrison site, but the claim lapsed when they never worked it. Now it's open land again. First come, first served. Hope flickered in Silas's chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, he could see a path forward. How far to Denver? Day and a half if we push it. Then we push it. Clara caught his eye across the fire. She nodded once, a silent promise. They were going to make it. They had to. 7 days left. 7 days to file the claim, secure the land, and save everything they'd fought for. Silas looked at the family gathered around the fire. Clara with Lillian in her lap. Elijah cleaning the rifle. Samuel reading by firelight. Rosemary braiding Tobias's hair while he complained Hector and his men sharing stories of the old days. This was what he'd been missing. This was what he'd lost when Maggie and Danny died. A family. And he'd be damned if he let Lawson Thorne take it from him. Denver rose out of the flatlands like a promise. Silas had been to the city twice before, once with his father, once to bury Maggie and Danny in the cemetery where his mother lay. Neither visit had ended well. But as they crested the final ridge and saw the buildings spread below them, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. Is that it? Tobias's voice was still weak, but the wonder in it was pure. Is that really Denver? That's it, Clara said. It's so big. Wait till you see the inside. They rode down the main road as the sun climbed higher. People stopped to stare, 7 riders plus 5 children, trail-worn and exhausted, looking like refugees from a war. Which in a way they were. Hector pulled alongside Silas. Claim office is on Larimer Street. We should go straight there. The children need rest, food. The children can rest after we file. Every minute we wait is a minute Thorne can use against us. Clara overheard. Hector's right. The claim comes first. Ma, I'm hungry, Tobias whined. You can be hungry for another hour. But, Tobias Maddox, I have dragged you through blizzards, nursed you through fever, and ridden 100 miles with you complaining the entire way. You can wait 60 more minutes for a biscuit. The boy slumped. Yes, ma'am. Elijah snorted. Samuel hid a smile behind his book. Even Lillian's lips twitched. Silas caught Clara's eye. She shrugged. He's been through worse. He'll survive. They reached the claim office at 9:30. The building was unimpressive, a squat wooden structure wedged between a general store and a lawyer's office. But the sign above the door read, Territorial Mining Claims, and that was all that mattered. Silas dismounted. Wait here. I'm coming with you, Clara said. Clara, I found the silver. I read the land. If there's questions about the deposit, you'll need me to answer them. She handed Lillian to Rosemary. Watch your brothers and sister. Don't talk to strangers. Yes, Ma. Clara fell into step beside Silas. Hector followed, one hand resting on his pistol. Inside the office smelled like dust and old paper. A clerk sat behind a scarred wooden desk, spectacles perched on his nose pen, scratching across a ledger. He didn't look up when they entered. Help you. We need to file a mineral claim, Silas said. Location: North Ridge of the Weston Ranch, Section 14, Township 3. The clerk's pen stopped moving. He looked up slowly. Weston Ranch. That's the property outside Silver Creek. Yes. The one Lawson Thorne's been trying to buy. Silas's jaw tightened. Does that matter? It might. The clerk set down his pen. Mr. Thorne was here yesterday, filed some papers of his own. Clara stepped forward. What kind of papers? Can't say, ma'am. Confidential. Can you say whether those papers affect our ability to file a claim? The clerk hesitated. His eyes darted toward a door at the back of the office, a door that hadn't been there a moment ago. Silas was sure of it. I'd have to check the records. Then check them. It could take a while. We'll wait. The clerk rose slowly, gathered some papers, and disappeared through the back door. Silas heard voices, low, urgent murmurs he couldn't make out. Something's wrong, Hector said quietly. I know. Clara's hand found Silas's arm. Whatever happens, we don't leave without filing. Agreed. The door opened again. But it wasn't the clerk who stepped through. It was Lawson Thorne. He looked different in daylight, cleaner, smoother, like a snake that had just shed its skin. His suit was expensive. His boots polished his smile, the kind that belonged on a poker player holding a winning hand. Mr. Weston, what a pleasant surprise. Thorne. And Mrs. Maddox. Thorne's eyes slid over Clara like she was property he was considering purchasing. Delightful to see you again. I trust the journey wasn't too arduous. What are you doing here? Clara's voice could have frozen the Rio Grande. Business, my dear, same as you. Thorne clasped his hands behind his back. I'm afraid there's been a complication with your claim. What kind of complication? The Territorial Office has received information suggesting that the Weston property is already encumbered by a prior claim, a claim filed by my grandfather in 1854. Silas's blood ran cold. That claim lapsed. Ezra Hawkins told us, Mr. Hawkins is a drunk and a fool. His opinion carries no legal weight. Thorne smiled. The records, however, do, and the records show that my family has held continuous interest in the mineral rights to that ridge for over 30 years. That's a lie. Is it? Thorne produced a folded paper from his coat. This document filed with the Territorial Recorder's Office establishes my grandfather's original claim, and this one, he produced a second paper, shows the transfer of that claim to my father and subsequently to me. Clara snatched the papers from his hand. Her eyes scanned the text rapidly, brow furrowed. These are forgeries. Careful, Mrs. Maddox. That's a serious accusation. These dates are wrong. The format doesn't match territorial standards from 1854. And this signature, she jabbed at the bottom of the page, is in ink that wasn't manufactured until 1879. Thorne's smile flickered. You seem very confident for a woman with no legal training. I'm confident because I can read. Clara held up the papers. My husband taught me to spot forged documents. Claim jumpers tried to steal our land in Texas 3 separate times. Every single one of them used papers just like these. Perhaps Texas standards differ from Colorado's. Fraud is fraud, Mr. Thorne. It looks the same everywhere. Silence fell over the office. The clerk had reappeared in the doorway, face pale, watching the confrontation like a man who wished he'd called in sick. Thorne's eyes hardened. The pleasant mask slipped, revealing something cold underneath. You're making a mistake, Mrs. Maddox. Am I? You have no standing here, no resources, no allies. He stepped closer. I have owned this territory's judges for 20 years. I have owned its sheriffs, its clerks, its bankers. One word from me, and you'll never file a claim anywhere in Colorado again. Then I suppose we'll have to file in Washington. Everyone turned. Hector stood in this doorway, holding a leather satchel Silas didn't recognize. Federal mineral claims, Hector said. Filed directly with the Department of the Interior. Bypasses territorial jurisdiction entirely. He smiled grimly. Learned about it from a lawyer friend in Santa Fe. Figured it might come in handy. Thorne's face went white. You can't. Already did. Hector set the satchel on the desk. Sent a copy of our claim by telegraph this morning before we even reached Denver. If anything happens to us, if we're arrested, delayed, or mysteriously disappear, there's a federal record that says the Weston family owns those mineral rights, and there's a lawyer in Santa Fe ready to fight for them. This is outrageous. This is legal. Clara stepped forward, meeting Thorne's gaze without flinching. And it's over. You've lost. For a long moment, nobody moved. Thorne's hands trembled at his sides with rage, with disbelief, with the realization that his 30-year plan had just collapsed. Then he laughed. A short, ugly sound. You think this changes anything? You think a piece of paper will stop me? He leaned in close to Clara. I burned your barn. I can burn your house. I can burn everything you love and salt the earth so nothing ever grows again. Silas moved. Fast. His fist connected with Thorne's jaw before the man could blink. Thorne staggered back, crashed into the clerk's desk, sent papers flying. You threaten her again, Silas said quietly, and I'll do more than hit you. Thorne touched his split lip. Blood stained his fingers. You'll regret this. Maybe, but not today. Thorne straightened his coat, adjusted his hat. When he looked at Silas again, all pretense of civility was gone. This isn't over, Weston, not by a long shot. He walked out. The door slammed behind him. Clara let out a breath she'd been holding since Thorne first appeared. That was satisfying. Which part? The part where you hit him. She smiled, small, tired, but real. I've been wanting to do that since he showed up at the ranch. Should have let you. Next time. The clerk cleared his throat nervously. Sir, ma'am? About your claim. Clara turned to him. Yes. Mr. Thorne's documents, they won't hold up. Not if what you said about the ink is true. The clerk glanced toward the back door as if afraid Thorne might reappear. I knew something was wrong when he filed them, but I was scared to say anything. And now I've got witnesses. He gestured at Hector. And apparently a federal record. That changes things. So, you'll process our claim. I'll process it right now, and I'll make sure it's bulletproof. The clerk sat down at his desk, pulled out fresh papers. Just need a few signatures and the filing fee. Silas reached for his wallet. Empty. Clara touched his arm. I've got it? Clara. I had $40 when I left Texas. She pulled a small purse from her coat, the same one she'd clutched during the stagecoach ride. Been saving it for an emergency. I'd say this qualifies. She counted out the bills and laid them on the desk. The clerk accepted them with shaking hands. Sign here, and here, and here. Silas signed. Clara signed as witness. Hector added his mark as a third party. When it was done, the clerk stamped the document with a heavy brass seal and handed them a copy. Congratulations. You now own the mineral rights to the north ridge of the Weston Ranch. Silas stared at the paper. The words blurred for a moment, exhaustion relief emotions he couldn't name. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. Clara's hand found his. Squeezed. Let's go tell the children. Outside, the sun had climbed higher. The street was busy now, merchants opening shops, wagons rolling past, people going about their ordinary lives. None of them knew that history had just been made in a dusty little office on Larimer Street. The children were waiting where they'd left them. Tobias had fallen asleep against Rosemary's shoulder. Samuel was reading. Elijah stood guard with his hand on the rifle. Well, Elijah's voice was tense. Did we get it? Clara held up the paper. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Tobias woke up, saw the document, and let out a whoop that echoed down the street. We did it. We got the silver. We got the claim. Clara corrected. The silver's still in the ground. But it's our silver now, right? Nobody can take it. Nobody can take it. Tobias whooped again. Samuel closed his book with a snap. Rosemary started crying happy tears, the kind that had been building for months. Even Elijah smiled a real smile that transformed his face. Lillian tugged on Clara's sleeve. "Mama, does this mean we can stay?" Clara knelt down to her daughter's level. "Yes, baby. It means we can stay. Forever. Forever." Lillian considered this. Then she turned to Silas. "Does that mean you're our papa now?" The question hit Silas like a punch to the gut. He looked at Clara, saw his own shock reflected in her eyes. "Lillian," Clara started. "Mr. Weston isn't—" "But you said we're staying forever, and papas are the ones who stay forever." Lillian's logic was unassailable. "So is he our papa or not?" Silas crouched down. The little girl's eyes, so serious, so hopeful, bore into his. "I'm not trying to replace your pa," he said carefully. "Nobody could do that. He was your father, and he always will be." Lillian's face fell. "Then you're leaving?" "No." Silas glanced at Clara, back to Lillian. "I'm not leaving. I'm gonna be here. For as long as you want me." "That's what papas do." "Then I guess—" Silas swallowed. "I guess that's what I'm gonna do." Lillian studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied, and returned to Rosemary's side. Clara's hand touched his shoulder. "You didn't have to say that." "I meant it." Silas stood facing her. "I ain't going anywhere, Clara, not unless you want me to. And if I don't want you to, then I'll stay." They stood there on the busy Denver street, 5 children watching a life worth of complications waiting for them back at the ranch. None of it mattered. In that moment, there was only Clara's eyes and the promise he'd just made. "We should find food," Clara said finally, "before Tobias expires from hunger." "I ain't expiring," Tobias protested. "I'm just really, really starving." "There's a difference. Ma, there's always a difference." They found a restaurant that served hot food and didn't ask questions about why 7 trail-worn people needed a table immediately. The children ate like they hadn't seen food in weeks. Hector and his men excused themselves to check on the horses and handle business, which probably meant making sure Thorne's men weren't planning an ambush. Silas watched Clara across the table. She was helping Lillian cut her meat, checking that Tobias wasn't eating too fast, reminding Samuel to put down his book during meals. She did it all without thinking, the way breathing came naturally. This was what he'd lost. This chaos, this noise, this beautiful, exhausting life. This was what he could have again. "You're staring," Clara said without looking up. "Sorry." "Don't be. Just don't expect me to look pretty when I'm covered in gravy." Too late. Clara's head came up, her cheeks flushed. "Silas Weston, are you flirting with me?" "Wouldn't dare." "Liar." Elijah made a gagging sound. "Can you two save that for when we're not eating?" "Mind your business," Clara said. "This is my business. I have to watch." "Then close your eyes." "If I close my eyes, Tobias will steal my biscuits." "I would not," Tobias said, reaching for Elijah's plate. "I'm stealing Samuel's biscuits." "Hey, you're reading. You don't need them." "That's not how food works." The argument devolved into chaos. Clara sighed, Silas laughed, and for one perfect moment, everything felt right. Then the door opened and reality walked back in. Not Thorne this time. A deputy, young, nervous hand resting on his holster. "Silas Weston." Silas stood slowly. "That's me." "You're under arrest." The restaurant went silent. Clara rose to her feet. The children stopped eating. "Arrest for what?" "Assault. Mr. Lawson Thorne filed a complaint. Says you attacked him without provocation in the Territorial Claim Office." "That's a lie," Clara said. "Thorne threatened me. Silas was defending—" "Ma'am, I don't make the laws, I just enforce them." The deputy looked genuinely apologetic. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to come with me." Silas looked at Clara, at the children, at everything he'd just promised to protect. "It's all right," he said quietly. "I'll sort this out." Silas. "Take the children back to the hotel. Get them settled. I'll find you." "But, Clara." He held her gaze. "I'll find you. I promise." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. But she looked at the children, at Lillian's frightened face, at Tobias's trembling lip, and nodded. "You'd better." Silas held out his hands. The deputy cuffed them quickly, almost guiltily. "Sorry about this, sir. Just doing your job." "Yes, sir." They walked out of the restaurant. The last thing Silas saw before the door closed was Clara's face, fierce, determined, ready to fight. He smiled despite everything. Thorne had made a mistake. He'd underestimated her. He'd underestimated all of them. The jail cell was cold, but Silas had survived worse. He sat on the narrow cot, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours. The deputy had been polite but firm. No visitors until the judge arrived in the morning. Thorne's doing, no doubt. Another delay, another obstacle. But the claim was filed. That was what mattered. Whatever happened to Silas, the silver belonged to his family now. His family. Strange how natural those words felt. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Silas sat up, expecting the deputy with dinner. Instead, Elijah appeared at the bars. "How did you get in here?" "Told the deputy I was your son." Elijah's jaw was tight. He didn't ask questions. "Clara know you're here." "She sent me." The boy reached through the bars, handed Silas a folded paper. "She said you'd need this." Silas unfolded it. Inside was a detailed account of what had happened in the claim office, Thorne's forged documents, his threats, the exact words he'd used when he promised to burn everything Clara loved. "She wrote it all down," Elijah said. "Every word. She says it's enough to get the charges dropped if the judge is honest." "Big if." "She also says—" Elijah hesitated. "She says if the judge isn't honest, Hector has another plan." "What kind of plan?" "She didn't tell me. Just said you shouldn't worry." Silas looked at the paper in his hands. Clara's handwriting was neat, precise, the writing of someone who'd been forced to document her own survival more than once. "She's something else, your ma." "I know. You're lucky to have her." Elijah was quiet for a moment. Then, "So are you." Silas looked up. "When Pa died," Elijah continued, "I thought that was it. I thought we were done, our family, our future, everything. But Ma just kept going. Kept fighting. Kept finding ways to survive when there weren't any." He paused. "She could have given up 100 times. She didn't." "No, she didn't. And now she's fighting for you." Elijah met his eyes through the bars. "A man she barely knows. A man who lied to her. A man who—" "I get it. I don't deserve it." "That's not what I'm saying." Elijah took a breath. "I'm saying she believes in you. She doesn't do that easy. Not anymore." He stepped back from the bars. "Don't make her regret it." "I won't." "You'd better not." Elijah turned to go, then stopped. "Oh, and Tobias wanted me to tell you something." "What?" "He says if you die in prison, he's keeping your horse." Despite everything, Silas laughed. "Tell him he can have it." "I'll tell him you said maybe." Elijah's mouth twitched. "Don't want him getting too confident." Then he was gone. Footsteps fading down the corridor. Silas lay back on the cot, Clara's letter clutched in his hand. 5 days left until Christmas. 5 days until the bank deadline passed, and the ranch was truly theirs. If he could just survive until then. Morning came gray and cold. The judge arrived at 9, a thin, tired man named Harrison, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He read the charges, heard the deputy's account, then looked at Silas. "Mr. Weston, do you have anything to say?" Silas handed over Clara's letter. "Read this." Judge Harrison took the paper. His eyes scanned it slowly, expression unchanging. When he finished, he set it down on his desk. "This is a serious accusation against Mr. Thorne. Every word is true. Can you prove it? The clerk can verify the forged documents. Half the town can verify Thorne's threats against my family." Silas stood straighter. "And I can verify that when a man threatens to burn down my home with my wife and children inside, I'm gonna hit him." "Your wife." Silas didn't hesitate. "My wife." Judge Harrison studied him for a long moment. Then he turned to the deputy. "Release him." "Sir." "I said release him." The judge stood. "I've known Lawson Thorne for 15 years. I've watched him buy this territory piece by piece, always staying just inside the law. But threatening a woman and children—" He shook his head. "That's a step too far, even for him." "He won't be happy, sir." "Mr. Thorne's happiness is not my concern." Judge Harrison looked at Silas. "Go home, Mr. Weston. Take care of your family, and if Thorne bothers you again, you come straight to me." Silas nodded. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. Thank whoever taught you to marry a woman who keeps detailed records." The ghost of a smile crossed the judge's face. "That letter of hers is better than anything my prosecutors have written in years." The deputy unlocked the cell. Silas walked out of the jail into pale morning sunlight. Clara's letter still in his hand. She was waiting across the street. The children stood behind her, Elijah with his arms crossed, Samuel clutching his books, Rosemary holding Lillian's hand, Tobias practically bouncing with impatience. Hector and his men flanked them like an honor guard. Clara didn't move. She just stood there watching, waiting. Silas crossed the street. He stopped in front of her, close enough to touch, close enough to see the worry lines around her eyes, the sleepless shadows beneath them. "You came back," she said. "Told you I would." "I know. I just—" Her voice broke. "I wasn't sure." Silas reached up, touched her face. Gently, like she might shatter if he pressed too hard. "I promised Lillian I wouldn't make you cry." "Then you'd better stop touching me like that." But she was smiling. Crying and smiling at the same time. "I ain't gonna stop." "I know." She leaned into his hand. "I know you're not." Tobias's voice cut through the moment. "Does this mean we can go home now?" Clara laughed, wet, broken, beautiful. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go home." Home. The word had never sounded so good. The ride back took 3 days. 3 days of frozen roads and mountain passes, of children sleeping in wagons and adults taking turns keeping watch. 3 days of looking over their shoulders, waiting for Thorne's men to appear on the horizon. They never did. Hector rode ahead to scout. His men flanked the wagon hands, never far from their pistols. But the road stayed empty, the mountains stayed quiet, and slowly, impossibly, the tension began to ease. "He's given up," Tobias declared on the second day. "The bad man's scared of us now." "Men like Thorne don't give up," Elijah said. "They just wait. Then we'll be ready when he comes back." Tobias: "I'm serious. I've been practicing with the slingshot. I can hit a tree from 50 feet. Trees don't shoot back. Neither will he when I get him in the eye." Clara turned in her saddle. "Nobody is shooting anybody in the eye. Are we clear? But Ma, clear?" Tobias slumped. "Yes, ma'am." Silas caught Clara's eye. She shook her head, but she was smiling. "That boy's going to be the death of me. He's got spirit. He's got too much spirit, just like his father." Clara's voice softened. Thomas was the same way, always ready to fight, always sure he'd win. Did he win? I mean, most of the time, right up until he didn't. She looked away. One loss is all it takes. Silas didn't know what to say. He never did when Thomas came up. The dead husband, the ghost that stood between them. He couldn't compete with a memory. But Clara reached over and touched his hand. "I'm glad you're here, Silas. I want you to know that. Even after everything, especially after everything," she squeezed his fingers. "You could have walked away a dozen times. You didn't. Neither did you. I had nowhere else to go. That ain't why you stayed." Clara was quiet for a moment. Then, "No, it's not." They crested the final ridge on Christmas Eve. The ranch spread below them, small and battered in the winter light. The barn was gone, nothing left but a black scar on the white ground. The fences sagged. The house looked tired, defeated, but smoke rose from the chimney. "Someone's here," Elijah said, hand moving to the rifle. "Easy." Hector had already dismounted, was studying the tracks in the snow. "These prints are old. Day maybe two. Whoever was here left a while ago." "Then who lit the fire?" The front door opened. A figure stepped onto the porch, old, bent, wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days. Ezra Hawkins. "About time you got back," he called. "I've been keeping your fire going for 2 days. You owe me for the firewood." Silas dismounted. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you. What's it look like?" Ezra hobbled down the steps. "Heard what happened in Denver. Heard Thorne got his nose bloodied. Figured you might need someone watching the place while you were gone. You came all the way out here alone." "Ain't alone." Ezra jerked his thumb toward the side of the house. "Brought some friends." Silas walked around the corner. Stopped. A dozen men stood in the yard. Ranchers, farmers, miners, men. Silas recognized from town men. He'd done business with men who'd watched him struggle for years and never offered help. They were building. A new barn was going up, frame already in place, walls starting to take shape. Lumber was stacked, nearby tools scattered across the ground. These men had been working. "What is this Christmas present?" Ezra appeared at his elbow. "Thorne's been squeezing this territory for 30 years. People are tired of it. When word got out what he did to your barn, what he tried to do to your claim." The old man shrugged. "Folks decided to push back. They're building me a barn. They're building themselves a barn, on your land. Way they see it, if you've got silver, you've got power. Power to stand up to Thorne. Power to change things around here." Ezra's eyes were sharp despite his age. "You ain't just fighting for yourself anymore, Weston. You're fighting for all of them." Clara had followed the children trailing behind. She stared at the rising structure with something like wonder. "I don't understand. These people, I don't even know them." "You don't have to." A woman stepped forward, middle-aged, work-worn, familiar somehow. "I'm Martha Brennan. My husband works for Thorne." Clara stiffened. "Brennan? The one who burned your barn?" "Yes." Martha's face was hard, but her eyes were wet. "Colt told me what he did. What Thorne made him do. He's been sick about it ever since." "Then why did he do it?" "Because Thorne owns our mortgage. Because we've got 3 children and nowhere else to go. Because—" Her voice broke. "Because sometimes you do terrible things to protect what you love." Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and took Martha's hands. "I know. Believe me, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what he did. It's not your fault. I should have stopped him. I should have—" "You did what you had to." Clara's voice was firm. "We all do." Martha broke down crying. Clara held her, this stranger, this wife of the man who'd burned her barn, and let her weep. Silas watched something shifting in his chest. This was who Clara was. Not just strong, but merciful. Not just fierce, but kind. This was who he'd married. The thought hit him like a thunderbolt. They weren't married. Not really. The advertisement had promised partnership, but they'd never stood before a preacher, never exchanged vows. They were living like a family, fighting like a family, but legally, they were still strangers. "Clara." She looked up from Martha's shoulder. "We need to talk." The children were inside, warming themselves by the fire. Ezra had taken over organizing the barn raising, his gruff voice carrying across the yard. Martha had joined the other women wives and mothers who'd come to help bringing food and blankets and hope. Silas and Clara stood on the porch watching it all unfold. "What did you want to talk about?" Silas took a breath. "We ain't married." Clara blinked. "What? We ain't married. Not proper. The advertisement said wife, but we never—" He stopped, started again. "I told the judge you were my wife. Elijah told the deputy he was my son. We've been acting like a family, but we're not. Legally." "No." Clara turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. "Does that matter to you?" "It matters to me that you have a choice." Silas forced himself to meet her eyes. "When you answered that ad, you were desperate. You had nowhere else to go. But now—" He gestured at the yard, at the people working, at the future taking shape. "Now you have options. The claim is filed. The ranch is yours as much as mine. If you want to leave, take the children, start over somewhere else." "Is that what you want?" "No." "Then why are you giving me permission to leave?" "Because you deserve the chance to choose. Really choose. Not out of desperation or fear or—" Clara kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was the kiss of a woman who'd made her decision and was tired of waiting for the man to catch up. When she pulled back, Silas couldn't breathe. "I chose," Clara said. "I chose when you ran into a burning barn for my son. I chose when you gave Samuel your mother's books. I chose when you promised my daughter you wouldn't make me cry." She touched his face. "I chose you, Silas Weston. I've been choosing you for weeks. I was just waiting for you to notice." "I noticed." "Then stop giving me permission to leave and ask me what you really want to ask." Silas's heart was pounding. "I don't have a ring." "I don't need a ring." "I don't have much of anything." "You have a ranch, a silver claim, and 5 children who've decided you're their father whether you like it or not." Clara smiled. "That's more than most men can offer." "Clara, ask me." Silas took her hands. They were rough, callous, the hands of a woman who'd worked every day of her life. "Will you marry me proper this time, in front of a preacher and God and everyone?" "When?" "Tomorrow, Christmas Day." Clara laughed, bright, surprised. "Tomorrow? I've wasted enough time already. I don't want to waste any more." She studied his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, finding none. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." From inside the cabin, a cheer went up. Silas turned to find all 5 children pressed against the window faces, split with grins. "They were watching," Clara said, not surprised at all. "You knew." "I suspected." She raised her voice. "All right, you hooligans, get out here." The door burst open. Tobias reached them first, throwing his arms around Silas's waist. "Does this mean you're really our pa now?" "Reckon it does. And we're really staying forever." "Forever." Tobias whooped. Samuel smiled his quiet smile. Rosemary hugged Clara, crying happy tears. Even Elijah, stoic, suspicious Elijah, looked pleased. Lillian was the last to approach. She stood in the doorway, watching, uncertain. Silas crouched down to her level. "What do you think, Lily? Is it okay if I marry your ma?" Lillian considered the question with tremendous seriousness. Then she nodded. "Papa would have liked you." The words hit Silas like a physical blow. Papa. Not my papa. Just Papa, as if Thomas were still present, still watching over his family. "You think so?" He always said real men protect the people they love, even when it's hard, even when they're scared. Lillian's dark eyes held his. "You do that." "I try." "That's all Papa ever did. Try." She paused. "He'd want Mama to be happy." "What about you? Do you want Mama to be happy?" "I want Mama to be happy, and I want us to stay, and I want—" Lillian hesitated. Then very quietly, "I want to call you Papa, if that's okay." Silas couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. His eyes were burning. He pulled Lillian into his arms and held her tight. "That's okay," he managed. "That's more than okay." Clara knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around both. The other children piled on Tobias, laughing, Samuel smiling, Rosemary crying, even Elijah joining the embrace. They stayed like that for a long moment. A family, finally. A real family. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. The barn-raising crew had worked through the night. The structure was complete now, not fancy, but solid. Strong enough to last through whatever storms came next. The men had gone home to their own families, but they'd be back. This was just the beginning. Reverend Stone arrived at 9. He was a small man, soft-spoken, but his eyes were kind. "I hear there's a wedding." "If you're willing," Clara said. "I'm more than willing. Been waiting for this territory to see some good news." He smiled. "Shall we begin?" They gathered in front of the cabin, the children, Ezra Hector and his men, Martha Brennan, and a few other women who'd stayed to help. Not a grand ceremony, not what Clara had dreamed of when she was young. Better. "Dearly beloved," Reverend Stone began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Silas Weston and Clara Maddox. In the sight of God and this community, they will pledge their lives to each other." Silas stood facing Clara. She wore her best dress, faded, patched, but clean. Her hair was braided with ribbons, Rosemary had found somewhere. She looked beautiful. "Silas, do you take this woman to be your wife, to love and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "Clara, do you take this man to be your husband, to love and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Reverend Stone smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Silas pulled Clara close, kissed her the way he'd wanted to since that first day at the stage stop when she'd climbed down with 5 children and no apologies. The children cheered. Ezra whistled. Someone threw rice, probably Tobias, because it hit Silas in the ear. When they broke apart, Clara was laughing. "We're married." "We're married." "Now what?" "Now." Silas looked at the cabin, at the new barn, at the children celebrating around them. "Now we live." The celebration lasted into the afternoon. There was food more than Silas had seen in months, and music from a fiddle someone had brought, and laughter that echoed across the frozen land. Silas stood apart for a moment, watching it all. Clara dancing with Tobias. Elijah actually smiling as he talked to Hector. Samuel reading to Lillian by the fire. Rosemary helping Martha Brennan serve pie. His family. His home. His future. Deep thoughts. He turned. Ezra had appeared at his elbow, whiskey flask in hand. "Just thinking about how different everything was 3 weeks ago." "3 weeks ago, you were a dead man walking. Now look at you." Ezra offered the flask. "Life's funny that way." Silas took a drink. The whiskey burned warm and familiar. "What happens now, with Thorne?" "Now you've got leverage. The claim's filed. The ranch is secure, and you've got half the territory ready to back you up if he tries anything." Ezra took the flask back. "Thorne's a bully. Bullies back down when they can't win easy. And if he doesn't back down, then you fight. But you won't be fighting alone." The old man's eyes were serious. "That's the difference, Weston. Before you were one man against the world. Now you're part of something bigger." Silas looked at Clara again. She'd stopped dancing, was watching him across the yard. She raised a hand, waved. He waved back. "I never wanted to be part of anything," he admitted, "after Maggie and Danny. I just wanted to be alone. Figured it was easier that way. Safer." "Was it?" "No." Silas shook his head. It was just lonely. Then I'd say this worked out about right. Ezra clapped him on the shoulder. Merry Christmas, Weston. You've earned it. The old man wandered off toward the food. Silas stayed where he was, watching his family celebrate, feeling something he'd forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of trouble. Trouble was coming, always was. But peace anyway. The kind that came from knowing you weren't facing it alone. Clara appeared beside him. She slipped her hand into his. What are you thinking about? You, the children, everything. Good everything or bad everything? Good. He turned to face her. I was thinking about how empty this place was before you came. How quiet. It's not quiet now. No, it ain't. He squeezed her hand. I like it better this way. So do I. Clara leaned against his shoulder. I was scared, you know. When the stage dropped us off and you looked at us like we were a plague, I thought I'd made the worst mistake of my life. You almost did. But I didn't. That's what matters. She looked up at him. We're going to be okay, Silas. Whatever comes next, we're going to be okay. How do you know? Because we're together. Because we've already survived the worst. Because... She paused, something flickering across her face. Because I believe in us. Silas kissed her forehead. Then I believe in us too. The sun set on Christmas Day. The guests departed one by one, heading home to their own families, their own celebrations. Hector and his men stayed. They'd camp in the new barn, keep watch through the night, just in case. The children fell asleep one by one. Tobias first, exhausted from dancing and eating his weight in pie. Samuel, next book still open in his hands. Rosemary and Lillian curled together by the fire. Even Elijah eventually drifted off, head pillowed on his arm. Clara and Silas sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars emerge. This time last year, Clara said quietly, I was sitting by Thomas's grave. The ground was frozen, but I'd brought flowers anyway. Wild ones from near the creek. He always liked those best. Silas stayed silent, listening. I didn't know what to do. The children were scared. The creditors were circling. His family had already written us off. She paused. I prayed that night, asked God to send me a sign, show me what to do. Did he answer? Not then. But a few weeks later I saw your advertisement in the paper, Land Roof Future. Clara smiled. I thought maybe that was my sign. And now I know it was. She turned to look at him. You're my answer, Silas. You and this ranch and this crazy, impossible life we're building. I didn't see it at first, but I see it now. Silas thought about the day he'd placed that advertisement. Drunk, desperate, convinced he was reaching the end of his rope. He'd asked for a wife. He'd gotten a miracle. I wasn't looking for a family, he admitted. I wasn't looking for anything except a way to stop being alone. And now I've got more than I ever dreamed of. He pulled her closer. 5 children who call me Papa. A wife who can outshoot half the men in the territory. A barn full of friends ready to fight beside me. He shook his head. 3 weeks ago I had nothing. Now I have everything. Not everything. Clara's voice was soft. The silver's still in the ground. The mine's not built. Thorn's still out there. I know. There's a lot of work ahead of us. I know that too. It won't be easy. Clara. Silas turned her face toward his. Nothing worth having is easy, but we'll figure it out. Together. She searched his eyes, finding truth there, finding promise. Together, she agreed. They sat in silence as the night deepened. The stars wheeled overhead. The wind whispered through the empty branches. Inside, the children slept dreaming of Christmas and family and futures that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. Tomorrow, the work would begin. The mine would need to be surveyed, equipment purchased, workers hired. The bank would need to be paid off. The claim gave them leverage, but there were still debts to settle. And Thorne would be watching, waiting, looking for any weakness to exploit. But that was tomorrow. Tonight there was only this, a man and a woman, a family forged from desperation, a home built on second chances. Clara's head drooped against Silas's shoulder. Her breathing slowed, evened out. Sleep claiming her at last. Silas didn't move. He sat there on the porch of the cabin that had almost been lost, holding the woman who had saved everything and let himself feel something he'd forgotten was possible. Gratitude. For the children sleeping inside. For the friends who'd helped rebuild what was broken. For the future spreading out before them, uncertain but bright. For Clara, most of all. Clara, who'd answered an advertisement full of lies and found truth anyway. Who'd walked into his broken life with 5 children and a trunk full of dreams and refused to let any of them die. He'd advertised for a wife. He'd gotten so much more. The first light of December 26th crept over the mountains, painting the snow gold and pink. Silas watched it come, Clara warm against his side, and made himself a promise. Whatever came next, the challenges, the struggles, the battles still to fight, he would face them. Not alone. Never alone again. He was a husband now. A father. Part of something bigger than himself. And for the first time in 5 years, Silas Weston was ready to live. Inside, Lillian stirred. Her small voice carried through the cabin door. "Papa, is it morning?" Silas smiled. "Yeah, Lily, it's morning." "Is Mama okay?" "Mama's perfect." A pause. Then, "Are we still a family?" Silas looked at Clara still sleeping. At the cabin that had sheltered them through the storm. At the new barn rising in the distance built by neighbors who'd become allies. "Yeah," he said softly. "We're still a family." "Good." Lillian appeared in the doorway, blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Tobias is trying to eat all the leftover pie." "Of course he is. Should I stop him?" "Let him have it. It's the day after Christmas." Lillian considered this. Then she smiled, a real smile, bright and full of life. "Okay, Papa." She disappeared back inside. A moment later, Silas heard Tobias's indignant voice. "Lily, you told him." And then Rosemary's laughter, and Samuel's quiet chuckle, and even Elijah's reluctant snort. Clara stirred against his shoulder. "What's all that noise?" "Our children." "Our children." She smiled without opening her eyes. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." Clara sat up, stretched, looked out at the golden dawn. "First day of the rest of our lives." "Scared?" "A little." She turned to him. "You?" "Terrified." "Good." She kissed him softly. "That means it matters." They stood together on the porch of their home, watching the sun rise over the land that was finally truly theirs. Behind them, 5 children argued over pie and blankets and who got to feed the horses first. A family. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And that was more than enough. The end. Thank you for watching this story of Silas and Clara. If their journey touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who believes in second chances. Leave a comment with your city so I can see how far this story has traveled. More tales of love, courage, and redemption are coming soon. Until next time.